They chase through proximity, not pressure, and this is the part almost nobody recognizes, because you're expecting their interest to look loud, obvious, confident, and direct, but avoidants don't chase that way. Their version of pursuing someone is quiet, subtle, almost invisible if you don't know what to look for, because they are terrified of exposing their feelings, terrified of being rejected, terrified of appearing vulnerable. So instead of chasing with words or declarations, they chase with presence. They stay close in ways that don't reveal their emotional investment. They hover in the background of your life, never fully stepping in, but never fully stepping out, watching you more carefully than you could ever imagine. They chase by staying in your orbit, not by storming back into your life. And this is where people often misunderstand them. Because to someone who loves openly, it seems like they're indifferent, but to an avoidant, being physically or digitally close is a huge emotional step. So when they keep finding reasons to be near you, when they stay connected in small ways, when they make sure they don't disappear completely, that is their version of chasing. That is them pushing back against their fear of intimacy, against their instinct to run, because staying anywhere near you requires internal courage they don't know how to express directly. You can see it in how they don't cut the cord completely, how they check your social media without interacting, how they watch your stories within minutes, but act like they didn't notice, how they text you something casual just to see if the door is still open, how they reply faster than normal when they're afraid you're losing interest, how they keep a thread of connection alive even when they swear they need space. Because space for them doesn't mean absence. It means proximity without pressure, closeness without emotional obligation, connection without vulnerability. And they cling to that balance even when it hurts them. An avoidant will chase by positioning themselves where you can notice them, where you can feel their presence, where they can observe your energy without having to expose their heart. They'll be around in the background quietly, consistently, subtly, because in their world, staying close is safer than stepping forward, and stepping forward is safer than walking away. So they hover in the middle space that confuses you but comforts them, because that middle space is the only place they feel emotionally protected. They might show up in shared environments, even when they don't have to. They might make small talk to test the emotional water. They might send something lighthearted to see how you respond. They might ask a mutual friend about you, but pretend they're just curious. They might even linger around you physically, sitting near you, walking by you, appearing in places where the chance of bumping into you feels accidental. But none of it is accidental. It's proximity-based chasing, and it's how they express longing without admitting it. What you don't see is how much inner conflict comes with this kind of chasing, because every time they stay close, they're fighting the urge to run away. Every time they reach out, they're battling the fear of rejection. Every time they check on you silently, they're struggling with the fear of being exposed, because avoidants want closeness more than they let on. They just don't know how to handle the emotional intensity that comes with it. So they choose proximity over pressure, because proximity keeps the connection alive while giving them the illusion of control. They chase by staying just close enough to feel connected, but not close enough to feel overwhelmed. And that's what makes their behavior feel contradictory. One moment they're present, attentive, curious. The next they pull back into silence. But even in silence, they don't fully detach. They still watch. They still follow your energy. They still think about you when you don't hear from them. Because their chase is internal, not external. It happens inside their mind long before it shows up in their behavior. What hurts you is that proximity is not the kind of chase you're used to, or the kind of chase you want. You want clarity, effort, consistency, and emotional transparency. But avoidants don't have the emotional skills required for that kind of pursuit. Not at the beginning, not until they feel safe enough. So they chase in the only ways they can, quietly, indirectly, through presence instead of pressure, through nearness instead of confession, through monitoring instead of expressing, through subtle reassurances instead of emotional declarations. But what you must understand is this: proximity Base chasing means they care more than they feel comfortable admitting, because an avoidant who truly doesn't care will disappear completely. They cut ties. They shut down. They let the connection die. They remove themselves from your environment, because distance feels safer than emotional conflict. But the one who stays close, even silently, even inconsistently, is the one who is still emotionally invested, the one who is still fighting against their fear, the one who still feels something strong enough to override their instinct to run away. Their presence, even quiet, even subtle, even confusing, is not an accident. It is intention covered in fear. It is emotion covered in distance. It is attachment covered in caution. And if you know how to read it, you will see that avoidants do chase. They just do it in ways that protect their heart long before they reveal it to you. They chase through consistency and small actions, not emotional declarations. And this is one of the most misunderstood truths about avoidant people, because you're looking and chasing in the traditional sense. Big gestures, clear words, emotional confessions, visible effort. But avoidants cannot chase like that. Their nervous system shuts down the moment love becomes loud, demanding, or emotionally intense. So instead, they show interest in small, almost invisible ways, subtle ways, gentle ways, ways that would expose their fear or vulnerability, but still communicate, "I'm trying," even if it doesn't look like the way you expect. Avoidants struggle with direct expressions of affection because emotional openness feels dangerous to them. They worry that if they show too much interest, you'll expect more than they can give. They worry that if they confess their feelings, you'll see their fear, their insecurity, their emotional limitations. And they worry that if they chase too boldly, they'll lose control of the pace, the intimacy, the emotional temperature of the connection. So instead, they chase through small but consistent actions, actions that seem simple to you but feel monumental to them. And avoidance, "I care about you," comes through the tiny things: a good morning message that seems casual but took them courage, a random check in that looks friendly but hides longing, a quick response when they're worried you might pull away, a thoughtful comment that shows they remember something you told them weeks ago, a slight shift in tone that hints at vulnerability they don't dare show completely. And each small action is their quiet way of keeping the connection alive without drowning themselves in emotional exposure. When avoidants chase, they don't do it with intensity, they do it with consistency. They don't flood you with words. They offer you small, steady touches of presence. They rewrite the narrative in their mind that says, "I can't do closeness well," by giving you just enough closeness to show interest, but not enough to trigger their panic. And this balance, delicate, fragile, imperfect, is their emotional limit. Yet every time they stretch toward you in these small ways, they are expanding that limit. Even if it doesn't look like expansion to you, you'll notice they don't disappear completely. Even when they're overwhelmed, they'll send a small message. Instead of disappearing for weeks, they'll react to something you posted. Instead of ignoring it, they'll circle back after needing space, even if the conversation is simple. Because consistency in small actions is safer for them than large emotional leaps. It gives them a way to stay connected while regulating the fear inside them. And that subtle pattern is how they chase someone they care about. Avoidants are not naturally consistent in romance. Silence is their default. Withdrawing is their instinct. Shutting down is their emotional reflex. So every little piece of effort they offer you is proof of care. Every message they initiate is courage disguised as casual conversation. Every invitation they extend is vulnerability wrapped inside neutrality. Every time they check heart, it is their heart reaching toward you in the only way they know how. And sometimes their chasing doesn't come in the form of reaching out. Sometimes it comes in the form of trying to meet your needs without you asking. Like remembering your schedule and messaging you when they know you're stressed. Like sending you a song because it reminded them of you. Like suddenly being present at the right time when you needed someone. Like offering practical help because emotional help feels overwhelming. Like adjusting their behavior quietly when they realize something triggered you. Because these small adjustments are their way of saying, "I'm listening, I'm aware, I'm trying." and trying for an avoidant is everything. You might overlook these gestures because you're waiting for something bigger, but for them, these gestures are big. They are battles against their instinct to hide. They are steps into vulnerability they usually avoid. They are cracks in the emotional armor they've worn since childhood. And every consistent small action they take is a sign that their attachment to you is stronger than their fear. Avoidants don't chase with intensity. They chase with persistence. They don't chase with drama. They chase with subtle presence. They don't chase with declarations. They chase with dedication. And the reason their actions are small is because they're terrified of pushing too hard, terrified of being rejected, terrified of being seen as desperate, terrified of losing control of their emotions. So they pick the form of effort that feels safest, but still keeps you in their life. What you need to understand is that small consistency means more to an avoidant than grand romantic gestures ever could, because small consistency is the opposite of their natural instinct. It means they're choosing connection over withdrawal, choosing effort over avoidance, choosing presence over emotional escape, and every time they reach out, even in a tiny way, they're fighting an internal battle you will never fully see, a battle between their desire to be close and their fear of being overwhelmed. And here is the hidden truth that hurts them later. When they lose you, when you finally get tired of the smallness of their effort, when you walk away because you need more than subtle gestures, they realize that their quiet consistency was never enough to match your emotional openness. They realize their small actions didn't protect the connection the way they hoped, and they realized too late that, while they were trying to protect themselves from emotional intensity, they were also losing the one person who made them want to try in the first place. So yes, avoidants do chase. They just chase in small, consistent ways, because that is the only way they can show interest without triggering the fear that has shaped their entire emotional life. And once you understand this, you will see that their quiet effort is not indifference. It is affection filtered through fear. It is love filtered through caution. It is interest filtered through insecurity. And every small action is a piece of their heart they don't know how to express any other way. They show interest by remembering small details you thought they ignored. And this is one of the most revealing signs that an avoidant person is secretly invested, because avoidants don't express affection through emotional intensity. They express it through quiet observation, through noticing things they don't comment on, through absorbing details they never bring up, through remembering parts of you that even you forget you shared. And this kind of remembering is not accidental. It is attachment disguised as neutrality. It is care disguised as distance. It is affection disguised as silence. And if you understand avoidance, you know that their memory is often the clearest window into their hidden feelings. Avoidants may not respond instantly. They may not give you long emotional messages. They may not ask deep questions right away, but they watch, they listen, they store information in their mind. Because observing is safer than expressing. Noticing is safer than admitting, and remembering is safer than revealing. Because to them, remembering doesn't require vulnerability. It doesn't require emotional exposure. It doesn't require them to say, I care, but it shows it anyway. They remember your favorite drink, even if they never said a word about it. They remember the date of something important, even if they didn't text you on that day. They remember where you said you wanted to travel. They remember the name of your friend, your pet, your childhood dream, your exact reaction to a difficult memory, because they study you quietly, carefully, deeply, not because they're trying to analyze you, but because they're emotionally invested in ways they don't know how to verbalize. And sometimes, when the fear isn't too overwhelming, their remembering slips out. It comes through in little comments that catch you off guard, like, didn't you say you had an interview today? Or, I know you like this coffee. Or, wasn't this the song you used to listen to? Or, you looked tired last week. Are you sleeping better now? And every time something like this happens, you need to understand that this is their heart speaking in the only language it feels safe using, a language of quiet recollection instead of direct confession. Avoidants don't forget you, even when they pretend to, even when they distance themselves, even when they pull back because their emotions feel too intense. Their mind stays connected through the details, because details don't demand vulnerability. Details don't trigger fear. Details don't require accountability. And yet remembering those details makes them feel connected. It makes them feel close to you in a way that doesn't overwhelm them. They might not initiate deep conversations, but they will bring up something you mentioned weeks ago. They might not ask how you feel directly, but they will show awareness of something you hinted at. They might not talk about emotions, but they will respond to your patterns, your moods, your shifts, because avoidants don't navigate relationships emotionally. They navigate them observationally, and their attention is far more powerful than their words. You may think they're not paying attention when they go quiet, but silence for an avoidant is not indifference. It is processing. It is fear management. It is emotional regulation. And during these silent periods, they replay things you've said. They analyze interactions. They remember every moment where they felt close to you, every moment where you understood them, every moment where they felt seen, even if they never tell you. And this silent replaying is their way of staying emotionally connected without stepping into vulnerability. Avoidants often struggle with emotional expression because their entire nervous system associates vulnerability with danger. So their way of showing care becomes indirect, subtle, hidden, and remembering you becomes safer than speaking to you. Recalling your details becomes safer than revealing their own. Knowing your preferences becomes safer than exposing their feelings, because knowing you deeply feels intimate, but doesn't require emotional exposure from them. And the truth is, the more they remember, the more invested they are, because avoidants don't emotional energy on people they don't care about. They don't analyze, observe, or recall details unless someone matters to them. They don't store emotional memories unless those memories have impact. They don't remember your habits, your routines, or your words unless those things touch them, even if they never admit how deeply. What hurts later, when the connection breaks or when you walk away, is that they are left with all those details still inside them. All those memories, all those moments they never expressed, and they feel the loss through those details more than through words, because avoidants don't grieve outwardly. They grieve internally, quietly, through the details that come back to them when they least expect it. When they hear a song you once mentioned, when they drive by a place you liked, when they see something that reminds them of a small part of you they never told you they remembered. And that grief hits them in ways they don't know how to process. So when an avoidant remembers things about you that you've long forgotten, when they reference details casually, when they show awareness of your inner world without ever having asked much about it, you need to understand that this is their hidden version of chasing, their hidden version of effort, their hidden version of interest, because remembering is the one form of intimacy that doesn't terrify them, the one form of connection they can hold on to without risking emotional collapse. And if you've ever doubted whether they cared, look not at what they say, but at what they remember, because their memory reveals the feelings they don't speak, the affection they try to hide, the attachment they fear showing, and the truth they won't admit, that you mattered to them far more than their behavior ever made you believe. They chase by creating opportunities to accidentally cross paths with you. And this is one of the clearest signs an avoidant is secretly attached, even though they can't bring themselves to admit it, because avoidants are terrified of direct pursuit, terrified of emotional exposure, terrified of looking like they want someone too much. So instead of showing interest openly, they chase through proximity that looks unplanned but is absolutely intentional. They place themselves in your orbit in ways that feel casual, harmless, coincidental, but beneath the surface it's longing, it's desire, it's the quiet ache of someone who wants to be close to you, but doesn't feel safe enough to say it out loud. They will appear in places where there is a real chance you might show up. They will linger in shared environments longer than necessary. They will walk by your usual routes, hang around mutual spaces, show up online at times you're active, and act like it's all random. But nothing about it is random. Because avoidants do not put themselves near someone unless their heart is involved. They do not run into you unless they planned it in their mind first. They do not position themselves close to your energy unless they miss you deeply. And even though they will never admit this, their behavior reveals what their fear tries to hide. They might go to the same cafe you love, even though it's out of their way. They might attend events you casually mentioned. They might show up at gatherings where they know you'll be present. They might walk near your workplace or your gym or your usual hangout spots, pretending it's coincidence, but internally hoping you notice them, hoping you feel their presence, hoping you acknowledge them, without them having to initiate emotional closeness. Avoidants don't want to approach you directly because approaching means risking rejection, risking vulnerability, risking the fear that you no longer care. So they choose the safer route, placing themselves in your surroundings so the universe does the approaching for them. So fate becomes the bridge they're too scared to build themselves, because when they accidentally see you, they don't have to admit they missed you. They don't have to confess they were hoping to run into you. They don't have to explain why their heart starts beating faster. The moment you come near, they can hide behind the excuse of coincidence, while still feeding the connection their fear won't let them speak about. Even online, avoidants chase this way. They watch your stories the moment you post. They appear active at the same time as you. They like something subtle to see if you'll notice. They comment lightly to check the emotional temperature. They send a small emoji reaction just to open the door without fully stepping in. Because in their world, being online when you're online is another form of accidental proximity. Another way to stay close to you without risking the intensity that comes with deep emotional expression. You may think these coincidences are random, but for an avoidant, they're small acts of courage, because showing up in your orbit requires them to fight the instinct to withdraw, fight the urge to disappear, fight the voice in their head that tells them to stay safe and distant. And every time they choose proximity over avoidance, they are pushing themselves into a level of emotional exposure that scares them but also pulls them toward you, because their heart wants connection even if their fear doesn't. When they run into you, notice their nervous energy, the way they act casual but their eyes give them away, the way they suddenly soften, the way their voice changes, the way their guard drops for a moment, because physical proximity activates their attachment system in ways their mind cannot hide. And for a brief moment, even if they try to conceal it, you can feel the truth. That they missed you, that they wanted to see you, that they hope for this moment even though they'll pretend otherwise. Sometimes they'll position themselves close, but not too close, sitting near you, but not next to you, walking by you but pretending they didn't see you first, lingering in your presence but avoiding too much eye contact, because avoidants crave connection but fear intensity. So they keep the distance small enough to feel your energy, but big enough to keep their heart protected. And this delicate dance between longing and fear becomes the hidden language of their chase. Even when they're scared, even when they're unsure of what you feel, even when they're afraid the connection is slipping away, they still find ways to cross your path. Because being near you brings them comfort, because your presence regulates them emotionally in ways they don't understand, because proximity soothes the parts of them that intimacy terrifies, and because seeing you, even from a distance, reminds them of something safe, something soft, something they wish they were brave enough to choose fully. And later, when the connection fades, or when you finally walk away, the thing that hurts avoidance the most, that they can no longer create those accidental moments. They can no longer cross paths with you without feeling the sting of distance. They can no longer place themselves near you without confronting the fact that they lost the chance to choose you intentionally. And this is when regret settles in, because the opportunities they created quietly were actually confessions they never had the courage to speak. So yes, avoidants do chase, but they chase by creating ways to accidentally find you, to be near you, to feel your presence without risking emotional exposure. And once you learn to see this pattern, you will recognize how deeply they care, because proximity for them is not coincidence. It is longing wrapped in fear, desire wrapped in caution, and love wrapped in silence. They chase through emotional timing, pulling back when overwhelmed and returning when they feel safe enough to approach. And this is one of the most confusing, most painful, and yet most revealing patterns in an avoidant person, because their interest does not move in a straight line. It moves in waves. It rises when their heart wants you. It retreats when their fear takes over. It comes back when the fear softens, and it repeats until they either grow emotionally or lose the person they secretly cared for the entire time. And if you don't understand this pattern, you will mistake their retreat for disinterest, when in reality it is emotional overload. Avoidants feel closeness intensely, far more intensely than they ever let on. And when emotions become too strong, when the connection feels too real, when vulnerability begins to rise inside them, their nervous system sends out alarms that say, "You're in danger, you're getting too close, you're losing control." And their instinctive response is to pull back, to create distance, to shut down temporarily, not because they don't care, not because they don't feel, but because the intensity feels unsafe, overwhelming, and unfamiliar. So they withdraw to regulate their emotions, to calm the internal storm they don't know how to navigate. And this withdrawal gets mistaken for indifference when it's actually emotional self-protection. But here's the part most people overlook. After they withdraw, after they calm down, after their fear settles, they come back, they reappear, they check in, they test the emotional temperature. They offer a small gesture to see if you're still there, because once their nervous system stabilizes, their desire for closeness returns, their longing resurfaces, their attachment activates again, and suddenly they want to be near you. They want to talk to you. They want to feel connected to you, but only at a level that doesn't overwhelm them, only at a pace that keeps them in control. This push-pull becomes their hidden chase, because every time they come back, they're choosing connection over avoidance, even if it's only for a moment. Every time they reach out after pulling away, they're fighting a battle between fear and desire, between vulnerability and self-protection, between emotional truth and emotional avoidance. And you need to understand this. Avoidants don't return to someone they don't care about. They don't keep coming back to someone they feel nothing for. They don't re-enter the emotional space of someone who doesn't matter. Their return is not routine. It's emotional courage disguised as softness. Their timing might feel inconsistent, but their inconsistency is actually communication, quiet communication, scared communication, unskilled communication, but communication nonetheless, because when they feel too much, they retreat, and when they miss you, they return. And this rhythm reveals their internal struggle more clearly than any words they could say, because avoidants don't talk about their emotions. They show them through patterns, and their emotional timing reveals both their wounds and their desire. You'll notice that they come back when you become quiet, when you stop chasing, when you stop over-giving, when you stop emotionally flooding them. Because your calm gives their fear a chance to rest, your silence gives their system space to breathe, your distance becomes the very thing that makes them feel safe to return. Because now the emotional pressure is gone, the expectations are softened, the intensity is reduced, and in that space of emotional neutrality, their longing grows stronger than their fear. Their timing is not random, it is rooted in emotional regulation. They leave when their emotions rise too high. They come back when their emotions fall to a level they can manage. And this is how they chase. Not all at once, not loudly, not courageously, but rhythmically in waves, in cycles, in small moments of reaching out that are larger for them than they look to you. And sometimes their timing shows up during moments they know nothing about consciously, like when you emotionally detach from them, when you start focusing on yourself, when you stop trying to fix the connection, because avoidants are acutely sensitive to emotional shifts. Even if they pretend not to be, they can feel when you've pulled away, and ironically, that's when their interest increases. That's when they chase harder. Because your calm no longer triggers their panic, and your distance no longer overwhelms their system. Now they feel the freedom to approach, the freedom to come closer without suffocating, under the weight of emotional expectations. But the heartbreaking part of this pattern is that avoidants often realize their interest too late because their fear causes delays. Their delays create mixed signals, and their mixed signals exhaust the other person, and by the time they feel safe enough to fully approach, the person they wanted has often moved on emotionally, grown stronger, chosen stability elsewhere, or simply gotten tired of chasing someone who chased in shadows instead of daylight. And when that moment comes, when an avoidant realizes that their emotional timing cost them the connection, it hits them harder than they ever expected, because they now have to face the truth that their fear made them late, their hesitation made them inconsistent, their silence made them confusing, and their emotional timing, the very thing they used to protect themselves, ended up becoming the very thing that pushed away the person they cared for quietly but intensely. So yes, avoidants do chase, but they chase through emotional timing. They chase in waves. They chase through pulling back and coming forward, through retreat and return, through silence and subtle pursuit. And once you understand this pattern, you won't confuse their essence with disinterest. Because avoidance is not the absence of feeling, it is the fear of it, and their timing is the clearest window into the war they're fighting between wanting you and being terrified of losing themselves in the process.